Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm co-host Scott.
And today we're diving into chapters 11 through 15 of World Serpent Arcanist.
We'll start with chapter 11, Port Akro. So as they're approaching the port, just to kind of give a quick recap, they run into a couple skull scorpion arcanists that they are fighting with. So Volke kicks off this battle by making a shadow dragon, which is a new power, but I very much approve of it. Pretty much everyone else in the battle just throws flames. You've got Addie and Zaxxas both just wildfire everywhere. They end up killing both of the skull scorpion arcanists, but the scorpions themselves are able to run away. They do catch the non-arcanist, who is the one that was trying to trick them into going with them and end up stealing or robbing them somehow. And they're going to take him to jail.
Okay, Volke, calm down. We're all going to herald you into song and story about how you went from Island Bumpkin into total badass, okay? This is what you're not necessarily wanting, but I'm pretty certain that this is going to happen before you did this.
Yes, and you can tell he's feeling his new powers a little bit. He's loving it. As they're approaching the town, we get this nice little interaction with Volke and Eviana, where Eviana does end with saying that everything is fine. I don't know if Volke speaks woman, but that does mean that everything is not fine.
It means the exact opposite is true.
Yes. And she does also make comments pretty much wishing that Volke would teach her how to kill everyone. So again, she's very violent.
And it's funny that she asked Volke this, because Volke is the absolute epitome of, I don't want to kill people, but I kill people.
Yeah, my biggest weakness is hesitating.
Exactly. So I feel like this is not the right person she should be asking this to. Zaxxas, maybe.
There's a lot better options out there on this boat. Fane, I could see. There's people she could go to. Yeah, she could go with Zaxxas. She could go with Fane. Karna wouldn't hesitate either. Zelfrey doesn't hesitate, but the one person she goes to is probably the one person who is a little hesitant about it.
I feel like he's just running around like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Apologizing to these dead corpses.
That leads us into chapter 12, Traders from Distant Lands. They find a hotel basically to stay in for the night because it is dark out. Everybody's exhausted. It was a long trek down. And Volke is promptly woken up with some kind of movement within his room. And it turns out to be Eviana sneaking into his room using her shadow stepping abilities, catching him while he's only wearing his trousers and only getting 4 hours of sleep. But yet she's the one that's upset because he has retribution drawn.
I really don't know what she expected.
Right? Like, you just snuck into his room.
Oh, I'm used to intruders in the middle of the night. You're fine. This happens all the time.
I feel like it'd be worse if he didn't react like that.
I would be concerned.
So Luther is basically being his clothes hanger because Luther is just like grabbing everything out of the shadows and giving him his clothes, his shirt, his belt, his boots. And Eviana's kind of explaining why she's in there, and she's basically saying that she has bad dreams about Livia and that Volke is pretty much the only person that could relate or understand what she's talking about. Volke was kind of irritated with this because, again, he just kind of randomly got woken up by her shadow stepping into his room. And he's like, look, I swear to God, if better be everything's on fire. Fane is trying to put out said fires. Adelgis is running around with his chicken, like a chicken with his head cut off because of the fires. Like everything has to be hitting the fan, okay? For you to just shadow step back into my room. Next time, have your people get a hold of my people. And then they'll get a hold of me.
And it works because their people don't sleep.
Exactly.
24/7 concierge service.
Like, shoot, hey, could you grab me this? I would be so horrible with that. Like, if it's not below you, would you mind grabbing me a cup of coffee? maybe pick up the dry cleaning and run to the grocery store for me.
I've got a list of chores.
Exactly. He could be two places at once.
He really could be.
Right? Like, shoot. We digress. So Volk has found out that Addie and Zaxxas have already been out into the market looking for star shards. And Zaxxas stood out like a sore thumb to everybody because everybody else in town has like brown or black hair. Blonde and redheads are very uncommon. So again, no wonder Zelfrey has a preference. He wants them exotics. You know, you got Linus, and then you got the people from the island of Ruma.
He likes luxury goods, you know.
They're not common, so like I said, the exotic, exquisite thing. So as they're walking around, Eviana is getting stared at, and Volk kind of realizes that the second ascension is still pretty much on the manhunt for her because Rashawn is a bad man.
A very bad man.
So he basically is, I'm going to kill her. She's dead to me. She needs to be killed. So she does need to be careful while she's outside of the guild. And Volk is looking around, trying to find a stall that has star shards. He did find a stall that had star shards sitting out in the open for trade. And the guy that he walks up to gives the traditional welcome, basically, as what people in New Nora would have given. And Volk reciprocated that and had talked about it. I imagine to this guy from New Nora that's in Port Akro, this guy is probably blown away that Volk knows how to do this, hand sign and like that greeting. They get to talking about the sandstorm that was so crazy that actually got over the city wall. And the guy's like, oh my God, I was there.
And Volk's like, oh, I was there too.
I definitely didn't cause that or have any part in that whatsoever. The guy from New Nora, he actually mentions that people aren't staring at his, I can't remember if he said his woman or whoever, his companion, I think is the word that they used. His companion, they're staring at Volk because he's got a glowing true form nightmare mark on his forehead. Like, of course they're staring at him. So they offer to make a trade. The guy wants 10 gold crowns or 11 gold leaves for those island bumpkins. And Volk's like, I don't got any money. So he's, well, you got a nightmare. So can I get something from your nightmare? And this is where we find out that the capes from nightmares are pretty much all of like where all their magic is or their strongest piece of magic on them. And like a beast, Luther comes up and just pulls out a chunk of him from his chest.
It just feels so graphic. Like, just rip out a piece and just like molds back over his body or his empty space, I guess.
Is he hollow? Like, is he truly hollow inside other than just the helmet?
These are the real questions.
Right. Like, we talked about Nicholin getting inside the helmet at one point. Like, could he just fall straight through to the leg? Like, how does this all work? So, again, Volk does decide to contribute something of his to get star shards to help get this ship up and moving again.
That brings us to chapter 13, which is Frith. Never heard that word before, so this should be interesting. We do get Eviana now coming in saying, no, don't trade away this piece. Laciel saying, yes, do trade it away. There may be some other places that we can find, but we got to take advantage of what we can. So they make the trade, and then they head over to the Tinkerers Guild, which is another place that's likely to have star shards. As they're making their way there, Eviana is sad because she's in a guild and she's not a princess. She kind of misses being a princess, so Volk bores her to death, talking about the definition of Frith and where the Frith Guild came from. And I don't know why she's still listening. But it seems to work. So
she does cap it off by saying that this is something that Livia would know. So I think that's why she's still listening. But other than that, she probably would have been like, and we're going to turn that off.
They make it to the Tinker's Guild, and Addie and Zaxxas are trading their magic for star shards.
I have to say that they describe the Tinker's Guild very well. Shami does, about how tall the shelves are. They're like 10 feet tall. Everything's organized by color, by magic type, and what it does, all this good stuff. And she even goes as far as to say that it's described similarly to the apothecary in Fortuna. Okay, that is where we should pump the brakes. Volk, get the hell out of the guild hall right now before you destroy it like you did in the apothecary.
And then, like he did the dig site, he destroyed their storage room as well.
He doesn't have a very good track record here.
He really doesn't.
So chapter 14, Forfend. Zaxxas and crew are all hiking back up the mountain as they've gotten 30 star shards from the Tinker's Guild. Volk's got his 5, and he's praying to God that's enough because he doesn't know, because nobody said anything about how much they needed. So we're rolling the dice here. Now, Zaxxas has got to be a glutton for pain. I mean, a glutton for pain.
Snack pouch.
He probably has bread in his snack pouch.
Some hard biscuits, a good tack.
Exactly. So Zaxxas is probably like, I have to get up this mountain in one stretch without taking a break. We got to get back. Volk does say, hey, look, I didn't shadow step down very much because I wanted to save my energy for the way back home. You know, kind of like Too Fast, Too Furious, save the NOS for the back home, you know, the backstretch. So Volk offers the shadow step with Addie and Zaxxas. Zaxxas is like, I'm going to go with Volk. And Volk's like, nah, brah.
I'm taking the girl.
Luther will take you. I'll take Addie. And Eviana is probably just sitting there fuming, like, what do you mean? So she then Eviana talks about wanting to practice other magics while she's shadow stepping, which is actually a pretty cool concept.
And I'm really wondering if other people can do this as well. Like, are there other magics you can use while using magic? It's a very interesting concept.
Like, why wouldn't you be able to use your terrors while shadow stepping or any of that? Like, manipulate while you're evoking terrors? Like, it's got to be able to happen, okay? He's got a true form. He's Volk.
Seems like it should work.
He just made a tidal wave of shadow that came up into a shape of a dragon. Like, he scared himself with doing that. Volk tells Eviana, make sure she's gonna, as Master Zelfrey would say, don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. I love Zelfrey so much. And this is like Volk's, if he has a mantra, this is it. Like, you can quote any of the steps of the pillars. He can quote anything that Luther has said. This is his mantra.
It really is. I'm pretty sure it's on the bookmarks too. The Volk bookmarks.
Yes, it is.
There we go.
It's because I didn't happen to have this sitting right next to me.
Mine's right behind me too. I was about to go look, but yours is closer.
So again, Volk deciding that he's going to take Addie. Addie gets kind of close to Volk, and Eviana gets straight peanut butter jelly,
like a teenager.
And Addie is all about breaking her mother's rules. As Volk is shadow stepping further and further up, they take a second to stop and get kind of snuggly. And she said that her mother would be extremely upset with her, not because it's Volk, but because she's getting snuggly with a guy in general, or somebody in general, and not focusing on becoming a true form Phoenix Arcanist. Once they get back to the ship, Volk and Zaxxas got there first because Luther is just a boss. Okay, like he could probably do that all day long.
He's practiced so much more than Volke has, I'm sure, all his time with Mathis.
Exactly. Plus, being true form. Zaxxas and Volke are talking about being able to shadow step. Zaxxas is like, dude, you should always shadow step. And Volke's like, yeah, no shit. Like, of course. So they have this like moment where they become best friends, and we're like, oh, I can imbue something for you, and you can imbue something for me, and then we can have a slumber party and paint our nails.
That's really how it feels. It's very middle school.
Like, oh my god, did we just get best friends?
Do you like guacamole?
Name your favorite dinosaur on 3. So Carta comes up after and gives him a big hug. And so Volke has had 3 women that have thrown themselves at him in the same day. Like, not even the same chapter, the same day. Like, dang, he's really the ladies' man.
He is. I don't know how he does it either. I don't think he knows how he does it.
He's that guy that's like, I seriously, like, people are coming up to him like, how did you do that? Like, did you say something funny? What was the joke?
He's like, I kind of wish I didn't have to deal with it. It's really difficult.
After getting the 30 star shards to Zelfree for the ship, Volke is like, hey, I did something too. I have 5. And Zelfree just kind of gives him the, 30 would have been more than enough. You didn't have to like trade your nightmare magic stuff for 5 more.
Sell a piece of your soul, almost. That's kind of what it feels like.
It kind of does. Like, again, there's so many questions involved with Luther just pulling stuff out of him, but we'll save that for another time. So then Jose does ask that Volke use those star shards in order to fix his shield, and Volke kind of like starts reaching down for it, and Luther just kind of passes it up. And I only imagine just watching like behind the scenes for things like in Harry Potter where they have the green gloved hands that are taking the books to return them, make it look like they're floating into the shelf. That's exactly what I picture happening. Just Jose was able to help fix the shield itself, and with the 5 star shards, Volke was able to imbue the rest of his magic into it and ended up naming the shield Forfend. And God, I'm never going to be able to say that properly.
It's tough. That and Skull Scorpions.
Right. Volke did pick a very badass name, and it means to protect things from evil.
Very fitting. And that brings us to chapter 15, which is A Night Together. So Bayou comes running up to Volke, very excited to see him. Everybody is essentially worried about Volke disappearing, so anytime he wanders off alone for a couple hours, they just assume he's run off on his own, which is pretty fair. Karna makes a comment about wanting him to come to bed.
And she said this in the middle of the galley. Like, not anywhere private.
And so she's like, oh yeah, we've slept together a bunch of times.
And I imagine this is where the record scratches as the music stops. Everybody just whipping around like, what?
Yeah, it has a astounding effect. Volke definitely flinches away from her. Addie and Eviana are obviously hurt, and reasonably so after hearing that they've been sleeping together.
I mean, she chose a poor choice of words. I think it was definitely on purpose. There's intent.
There's intention behind it. You don't mess that one up by accident.
Volke, you got to stop playing the whole field when everybody's on the field.
He's learning this firsthand. And as the room is clearing out to let Karna and Volke figure out what is going on, we do get this snippet of conversation between Fane and Adelgis, where Fane essentially just wants all the gossip from Adelgis of what everybody is thinking, so he can hear not just like Karna's reactions, but I want to hear Eviana's thoughts. I want to hear Addie's thoughts. Tell me what's going on.
It's just a big old pot.
It is. It's a huge kettle of tea. Adelgis is swimming laps in it at this point. And we do end off with Karna breaking down into tears. And of the three, Karna is probably the last one I would have taken to break down into tears.
And this is one of those, that whenever she interacts with Volk, she is her true self. She's not pretending, other than like the random times that she's trying to throw him off in somebody else's form. She's truly herself with him. So for her to be crying like this, that's a pretty significant thing. And I think I could have handled Addie or Eviana crying a lot better than Karna crying.
Yeah, especially because, Karna has been through it. So if something is shaking her up, it's not a light matter.
So with that ends chapter 15. With the bestiary being so close to being released and everything like that, we did promise Shami that we would not disclose anything else until we are told that we can. So I believe after this episode, we will be able to start continuing on the bestiary. I'm going to wait for her official Ominous Dominus to let us begin that. So we're just waiting for Shami to give us the clear, just because previously we did have some recorded for the updated bestiary. Delay in releasing the bestiary, we had to cut it out. So to avoid anything else from happening and having to cut things out, we were just going to wait for her official, everything's been shipped, and most of her Kickstarter people have gotten it, so that way they can have a chance to read it first.
Every time you mention Shami, I just want to be like, I'm going to pick that name up real quick.
I swear I'm not like...
No, I know you're not doing it. It just feels like friend of the pod. I'm going to pick that name up.
I promise it's more of it's more me like straight fanboying than it is anything else.
I know.
than trying to be like, oh, look at me.
It's just so funny.
Did I mention that? Oh, no. But all right. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Eric, Scott, and I want to thank everyone for listening today. We post a new episode every Wednesday morning at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and 8 Pacific Standard Time. We are on all podcasting platforms and are also on YouTube as well for video. After the additional episode airs, we post chapter-by-chapter videos every day in a smaller, easier-to-digest format. We do want to give a special shout-out to the final member of our team, Dan Mackison, one of the admins for the Frith Chronicles Wiki, link listed below, and doing his best to keep everything running smoothly behind the scenes. If you want to reach out to us, you could email us at frithguildpod@gmail.com or on Facebook or any other social media by searching for Frith Guild Podcast. Just to remind everybody, we have links to everything in the description below on both the podcast and YouTube.
Before you go to chapter 14, so in the notes, there's a typo. It's supposed to be a glutton for pain, but he's a gluten for pain, which I think is just amazing because he's a little piece of bread.
I'm totally going to say it like that.
And I'm like, oh, Zax is his little slice of bread.
He's got a snack pouch, okay?
He does. He does carry around a snack pouch.
All right.